The Supreme Court doesn't pass laws, but with a single ruling it can change everything. From civil rights to presidential power, these landmark decisions altered the course of American history and often challenged the president in office. Welcome back to Decafacts. Today we are counting down 10 Supreme Court rulings that changed America. 10. Obergefell versus Hodges, 2015. In 2015, under President Barack Obama, the court ruled 5-4 that same-sex marriage is a constitutional right. It struck down bans in 14 states, making marriage equality the law of the land. President Obama welcomed the decision, calling it a victory for America. It was a milestone for LGBTQ+ rights and reflected how far public opinion and constitutional interpretation had evolved in a single generation. 9. Bush versus Gore, 2000. This 5-4 decision effectively decided the 2000 presidential election by stopping the Florida recount. Though the ruling came under President Bill Clinton, it handed the presidency to George W. Bush, ending weeks of uncertainty. Clinton remained publicly reserved, but many believed the court had overstepped its role by intervening in a political dispute. The case remains one of the most controversial uses of judicial power in electoral history. 8. Dred Scott versus Sanford, 1857. Under President James Buchanan, the court ruled that enslaved people and all African Americans could not be citizens and had no right to sue in federal court. It also struck down the Missouri Compromise, opening new territories to slavery. Buchanan supported the decision, but it backfired politically and morally. The ruling enraged abolitionists and pushed the country closer to civil war. Historians often call it the worst Supreme Court ruling in U.S. history. 7. Citizens United versus FEC, 2010. Under President Barack Obama, the court ruled 5-4 that corporations and unions could spend unlimited money on political campaigns. The decision was grounded in the First Amendment, but it changed elections forever. Obama famously rebuked the ruling during his State of the Union address, with several justices seated right in front of him. Supporters saw it as a win for free speech. Critics saw it as a blow to democracy and a green light for dark money. 6. Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. In a unanimous decision under President Dwight D. Eisenhower, the court ruled that racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. The ruling overturned Plessy versus Ferguson and shattered the legal basis for separate but equal. Eisenhower was cautious but ultimately enforced the decision, sending federal troops to Little Rock to protect black students. The ruling laid the legal foundation for the civil rights movement. 5. United States versus Nixon, 1974. Facing the Watergate scandal, the court ruled 8-0 that President Richard Nixon must hand over secret White House tapes. Nixon had claimed executive privilege, but the court disagreed. Within days of the ruling, Nixon resigned from office. It was a powerful reminder that not even the president is above the law, and a defining moment for the integrity of U.S. institutions. 4. Miranda versus Arizona, 1966. Under President Lyndon B. Johnson, the court ruled that suspects must be informed of their rights before being questioned. We know them today as Miranda rights. The ruling transformed law enforcement and protected the Fifth and Sixth Amendments. While it was controversial among police, it became a cornerstone of civil liberties and due process. 3. Roe versus Wade, 1973. Under President Richard Nixon, the court ruled 7-2 that the Constitution protects a woman's right to access abortion. Grounded in the 14th Amendment's right to privacy, the decision legalized abortion nationwide. Nixon made no public statement, but the ruling triggered decades of political and cultural conflict. Roe defined reproductive rights for nearly 50 years, and as we'll see next, that legacy did not last. 2. Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, 2022. In 2022, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, a case discussed earlier in this countdown. In a 6-3 decision, the court upheld Mississippi's 15-week abortion ban and declared that the Constitution does not guarantee a right to abortion. The ruling came during President Joe Biden's term. Biden condemned it, calling it a realization of an extreme ideology that endangered women's health and freedoms. The decision triggered abortion bans across multiple states almost instantly. It was one of the most dramatic reversals in Supreme Court history, a moment when the court not only reinterpreted the Constitution, but also dismantled decades of precedent. 1. Marbury versus Madison, 1803. At number 1 is the decision that gave the court its power. Under President Thomas Jefferson, the court ruled that it had the authority to strike down laws that violate the Constitution, establishing judicial review. Though Jefferson disagreed with the decision, he accepted its outcome. This ruling gave the judiciary its co-equal status and ensured that constitutional checks and balances would endure. Without Marbury, none of the rulings on this list would have been possible. These rulings didn't just settle legal questions. They redefined what it means to be American. They shaped our elections, our freedoms, our workplaces, our bodies, and our presidents. Some sparked progress. Others sparked outrage. But all of them left a permanent imprint on the nation. Which decision do you think had the greatest impact? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching Deck of Facts. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and ring the bell so you never miss a video. See you in the next countdown.